right, so I'm listening to the Diary of a CEO. They got a passive income expert. I can't see the rest. Let's see. What's his name? I've not heard of him, but I will go check him out. And I'm in my car driving to work, and I wanted to make a video about this. So I think it don't say. JL, I think, I don't know. But they're on there talking about money and why you shouldn't buy a house. And for me, and forgive me, I hope this don't fall. For me, and I'm only 29 minutes in, so I'm a half hour in. I'm gonna finish this, listen to this throughout the day. For me, I can't, nothing he said, everything he said is his, his financial opinion, his personal opinion. So this isn't me saying that I know better. These are opinions. But he's talking about why you shouldn't buy a house. And I think he's talking to the Stephen Bartlett age demographic. Because the reasons that he's giving would be the reasons I would tell somebody to buy a house. For me, buying a home, because he said buying a home is an indulgence. For me, it was a sense of stability because I did not like the apartment lifestyle. I went from home ownership from the age of 18 to at the mid-30s, I moved across the country to pursue a position. And so I took on an apartment. So I went from Midwest living to Pacific Northwest, in which me just having a studio apartment at the time was $975. And it wasn't in a high-end area of the town, but it wasn't in the poor part of town. I felt very safe. But it was $975. Somebody would say that would be cheap, but this was way before COVID. So this was like 2017. To me, it was extremely expensive. Because I want to say my rent at that time would have been like a third of my check or something. But I was wanting safety. And I said I will bring down the cost of everything else. I stayed in that apartment 3 years for sure. And then COVID hit, and that side of the country was hit first by COVID, because the first case came through Seattle, Washington airport, and I was living in the state of Washington. Literally overnight, it couldn't have been more than 2 months, because it was like that February, things was quiet on the home front. That March is when everything kind of exploded with COVID. From there, I went from them $975 where my utilities, with the exception of my electric bill, was included. So Wi-Fi, trash, all of the things were included. I want to say it went up to $1,475, $500. And I said, well, what I'm going to do, because I had to make a plan then, is I'm going to stay here and let this COVID stuff blow, like whatever it's going to do. First thing smoking, I'm going back to the Midwest. Because at that time in 2020, being in the Midwest, $1,475, I could have lived downtown in a nice luxury loft. And then some. Because I think when I came back to the Midwest, they were still under the $1,000. They were at the $1,100 mark. And you're talking about 2 and 3 level lofts and stuff. So for me, and I'm saying all this to say, if you are a young person where stability is not anything that you care about, of course. I did not care for apartment living. I didn't care to be where I didn't know from lease to lease what my rent was going to be. If the owner or whatever I have lived in wanted to raise the rent, I was out of luck. If the owner wanted to move back into their stuff, I was out of luck. And that constant searching for a new place to lay my head, that made me uneasy. I cannot stand that feeling of that unsurety of where I'm going to lay my head. But that's mine. Some people might like it. You know, that RV living and stuff like that. I don't like not knowing where I'm going to be. And so with that said, when I came back here, the conversation was then, who's going to help with my elderly mom? And that's a whole nother conversation. Initially, I was like, instead of putting money into an apartment, I found me a townhouse that was $900 a month. It was 2-3 levels, 2 bedrooms in a city that I wanted to stay in on the outskirts of my city. I talked to my siblings about it at the time, and they was like, well, why don't you save your money and go ahead and move in with mom? But because she was buying a house, I think they were upgrading in their home, and that means because at that time I was working full time, going to school full time, and I want to say working part time, so we were never going to cross paths. And I'll stay on that top level and just go work. Dynamics came in, and I would love to hear other people's experiences about that. It was not financially and mentally feasible for me to be there when I have become accustomed to a certain way of being. And coming in and having rules at 35 and 40 years, like in retrospect, when I hear people talk about, oh, it's a cultural thing and we should stay together and save the money, I'm going to tell anybody, culture or not, you need peace of mind. And having somebody bust in on my phone conversations, it's just a lack of, when you stay with somebody else, there's a lack of boundaries. And that's even an apartment. Because that was another thing I didn't care for about living in an apartment, is they could come into your apartment anytime they want to. So I was like, well, let me get the first thing smoking up out of this this woman's house. Because I don't want, it ain't that you're mean or anything. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do your rules. And that's it. I ain't nobody's mad at each other. I didn't want to do it. I don't want to have to. Oh, go ahead. I didn't want to have to. If you're a young person and you ain't got that in you, and you can get in with your parents, and maybe they got an outdoor home and stuff, do it. But for me, it was a lot. It was a lot. So I don't even think I was in her home 6 months before I closed on the next house. That's how quick I was moving. And closing on a house takes. You might be working on buying a house for a year, and that was right at the housing crisis. When I tell you I was on it, I don't think it was 6 months. I think I started looking in July, and I was closing in September. And I had glitches. Because you have glitches in the system whenever, whether it be, paperwork didn't go through, or I think for mine, it was some, what do you do? Appraisal. No, what is it when the people come out and look at the house? My brain is off. Anyway, I ended up getting what I thought was more of the high-end part of the interest rate. I didn't realize that I was that the market was going to go insane. From there, I think right now interest rates are anywhere between 6 and 8%. At the time, I thought I really had a high interest rate because everybody was getting them 1% and stuff. I got 3%. I ain't going nowhere. And so when I hear stuff about people saying, oh, don't buy a house, I don't understand how that could be the overarching idea when there's so many variables. When I get online, I'm seeing women or young girls buy houses cash, $5,000, and they can put sweat equity into it because they got dads and stuff who helping them renovate. What would be the hurt in, if you don't mind taking the time for a year and fixing on the house, you got somewhere to lay your head. And that's the one thing I noticed that's the biggest crisis right now, is people being able to have some stability in where they lay their head at. So I guess I can't really say don't buy a house. I can't tell somebody that, because that's my one thing, and that's the one thing he said, is that if that's an indulgence, that's the one thing I would be willing to work for out of my whole check, is somewhere for me to lay my house. And I think that comes down from knowing what it's like to go through homelessness and know what it's like to live with other, like when I was younger, staying with a granddad, and they don't want you there. It's not a good feeling. I couldn't even go to school every day with all that fussing and stuff. So I guess it depends on the household you come from, and most African Americans, that's what we aspire to have, is somewhere to call a safety space. I go home and charge up. I literally go home and charge up so I can get prepared to go out and handle the world that I'm living in the next day. And I was so happy the Lord revealed that to me. He was like, don't worry about getting to it with anybody. Let them have the show, because you can go home and charge up. You can go home and talk to me about it. So I don't know, like, I'm gonna come back and talk about this some more. I can't give young people the advice not to buy a house. I don't know anybody's circumstances. And right now, how everybody is going about acquiring property and stuff, there's so many unorthodox ways. There's people buying sheds and little or nothing getting some land, and they got them a homestead. And what is it if you only put in $25,000 total? To tell somebody to forfeit that because you want to be able to come, be flexibility to come and go where? Because everybody, like, for the most part, every young person I know, they go out, they get their feelings hurt, they go out to the big cities, and then once they get married, they come right back to that hometown feeling. So I don't know. I got to sit down and wrap my head around that one, because I work around, I have different demographics that I work around, and I try to always use a level head. And I always tell people, I don't give advice from your perspective because I don't know it. I can only give perspective through mine. And through my gaze, the safest I have ever felt is right now to be in a home where I can go home every day and charge up. Is there financial responsibility involved? Absolutely. Right now, I need to start kind of either putting my eyes on getting a new roof or a new, because I just got a new furnace not too long ago, or a new air conditioning situation. But in my mind, I always have plan B, C, and D. Because I didn't buy within, like, I think they give you a range of how much you can afford. I bought on the super low end, to the point where she told me if this house would be any lower, we wouldn't even have been able to finance it. Because I want to say banks don't even take loans like under $40,000. Like, I went super on the low end. So if I had to go and work somewhere minimum wage, I could at least afford my mortgage. In fact, the mortgage part of my when I sit down and look at my statement, of course we want to be mortgage free. The mortgage portion of my statement is so low that if I were to pay off my house, I'd only be saving $300 on it. The rest of my home mortgage is eaten up by escrow. Literally, my taxes and my insurance is so much higher than the mortgage part. I haven't been busting my neck to try and pay it out, because when I ran the math on it, it's just much more feasible for me to throw more money at my escrow. So, and then, okay, let's just say I came into some money tomorrow and I paid off my house. Yes, it would feel good to pay off my house. What would be tearing me up is what's going on with the taxes and the insurance going up. But that still hasn't ever made my mortgage higher than the $1,400 and $1,600 and $1,700 studio apartments. And I'm like 5-10 minutes from, I can literally see the city from like the interstate. I literally live on the outskirts where crime and stuff is not, I mean, I don't live in a but I don't get hit by that overflux of the city living. I literally can see deer and stuff in my backyard. So, like, I don't know, I'm gonna come back and talk about this some more.